The Battle of Wizna is often called the Polish Thermopylae. That comparison sounds heroic, but it's misleading. At Thermopylae, 300 Spartans chose their ground and knew they would die. At Wizna, 700 Polish soldiers with no anti-tank weapons faced more than 40,000 Germans and 300 tanks. The lesser-known fact is that they were never supposed to hold. Polish tactical doctrine in 1939 called for delaying actions, not last stands. Captain Władysław Raginis, the 29-year-old commander, had explicit orders: resist for 12 hours, then withdraw. He held for 3 days. There's a common misconception that the Poles fought at Wizna because they didn't realize how impossible their situation was, but actually they knew exactly how outmatched they were. Even so, they chose to fight, since retreat was, for most of the battle, logistically impossible. One often overlooked consequence of Wizna is that it forced the German 19th Panzer Corps to burn fuel and time, resources they simply couldn't replace before the larger Battle of the Bzura. Just a tiny delay, really only a few hours, ended up changing the rhythm of the entire Polish campaign. The Wizna fortified sector was, in fact, a string of 12 concrete bunkers built back in the 1930s along the Nerew River. The original idea was to block the only road and rail crossing from East Prussia toward Warsaw. But the bunkers were never finished. Many had no ventilation. Several had only wooden doors. Most lacked the anti-tank guns they were designed to hold. By September 1939, the Polish army was scrambling to man every defensive position with whatever troops were available. Captain Raginis received a mixed force, several hundred infantry reservists, a handful of machine gunners, and 2 anti-tank rifles. Total anti-armor capability: 2 rifles. The WS-35 was a clever design. It used a tungsten core bullet that could penetrate German tank armor at close range, but it had to be fired at a target within 300 meters. That meant letting the tanks get dangerously close before shooting. And each rifle had only a few dozen rounds. Here's an overlooked human detail. Raginis was not a hardened veteran. He was an infantry captain with no combat experience. He had been a teacher before the war. His leadership style, according to survivors, was quiet and analytical. He walked the bunker line at night, talked to each squad, and never raised his voice. The German attack began at dawn on September 7, 1939. General Heinz Guderian's 19th Panzer Corps crossed the Nerew in 2 places, expecting to brush aside light resistance. The first wave of tanks rolled toward Bunker 1. The Polish defenders waited until the lead tank was 50 meters away. Then they fired the anti-tank rifle. The first shot penetrated. The tank stopped. The second tank kept moving. The Poles fired again. That rhythm, wait, let them close fire, became the pattern for the entire first day. The Germans expected the bunkers to surrender once surrounded. But, well, they did not. The Poles had a simple logistics problem. They couldn't retreat even if they wanted to. The Nerew was behind them, and the only bridge had been destroyed by Polish engineers days earlier. So, they stayed in the bunkers, fought through the afternoon, and, watched their ammunition dwindle. By the morning of September 8th, 2 of the 12 bunkers were silent, their crews dead or unconscious from carbon monoxide poisoning. The ventilation problem that seemed minor during construction, well, it became lethal in combat. Guderian grew frustrated. He ordered Stuka dive bombers to hit the bunkers directly. But, those 1939-era Stukas were not really precision weapons. Most bombs just landed in the soft riverbank mud, shaking the bunkers but not destroying them. The real damage was psychological. Constant explosions, dust falling from the ceiling, and the scream of diving aircraft. Raginis moved between bunkers, carrying ammunition boxes on his back because, well, the communication trenches were blocked by rubble. On the third day, September 9th, the Germans brought forward artillery to fire directly at the bunker firing slits. Not howitzers. 88mm flak guns aimed horizontally. Those guns punched through the bunker walls one by one. By noon, only 2 bunkers remained operational. Raginis gathered his remaining men, fewer than 50, and made a calculation. They had no food, no water. Less than 200 rounds of rifle ammunition. He ordered those still able to fight to leave through a rear drainage pipe. He would stay with the wounded. The drainage pipe was only wide enough for 1 man at a time. It took 40 minutes for the survivors to crawl through. The Germans demanded surrender one final time. Raginis stood at the bunker entrance, walked into the open, and detonated a grenade against his chest. He was 29 years old. The Germans took the bunker 20 minutes later. They found the wounded Poles, 9 men, and executed them immediately. That is the ugly fact that heroic retellings often omit. The Wehrmacht in 1939 was already committing war crimes on the battlefield, not just in the rear areas. The Battle of Wizna delayed the German advance by roughly 72 hours. That delay allowed the Polish army to concentrate for the Battle of the Bzura, the largest counterattack of the September campaign. The Bzura ultimately failed. The Germans had too many tanks and just too much air power. But, it inflicted 5,000 German casualties and actually forced Guderian to pause his drive toward Warsaw. No single delaying action wins a war, but a series of them can, well, change the attacker's calculus. The broader lesson from Wizna is about the value of positional discipline. Raginis did not outfight the Germans. He simply could not. Instead, he outlasted their expectations. And that mismatch, what an attacker expects versus what actually happens, is honestly one of the few levers that a weaker force can consistently pull. Defense is not about victory in the conventional sense. It's about making the other side pay for every kilometer in ways they didn't, budget for. Subscribe to War Machiner and share this if you value history that goes deeper.